host, Andrew Corns. This week I am joined alongside all three of the guys who are normally here. I've got Greg Bussman. Greg, how are you?
Good, Andrew. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. It looks like you're somewhere in space at the moment. Hopefully you can hear us all right.
Yeah, loud and clear.
I've also got Sean Jeffrey. Sean, how are you this morning?
I am already sweating. It's 10 after 11 in St. Louis, and
It's probably about
I was already
out
out doing gardening this morning at 7 o'clock. So,
and we've also got Dan Sashanik with us. Dan, how are you today?
I'm doing good.
Okay, well, we're going to jump right into everything. Once again, it's the third week of June, so as we've done the last two episodes, we're going to start each episode with a special segment on Pride Month. So what we've done is we basically just put a spotlight on some LGBTQ athletes that we think deserve some recognition. So I'm going to jump right in with mine to begin with. The athlete I've got today is Kyle Alums. And Kyle is a former college basketball player for George Washington University women's team, who in 2010 came out as a trans man, becoming the first openly transgender NCAA Division I college athlete. Kyle is now visiting schools to discuss the transgender community, gives advice on confronting bullies, and Kyle was also inducted into the National Gay and Lesbian Sports Hall of Fame in 2015. And Kyle's got a book out right now called Who Am I?, which features poems and letters he wrote about his parents and himself. So I wanted to take a little moment to appreciate Kyle and all the work he's doing in the LGBT community. Next, I want to go over to Sean. Sean's got a little something for us.
yeah, I wanted to mention a gentleman named Stephen Thompson. He is the co-founder of the new Seattle Pride Hockey Association. He's grew up in Seattle. He went to see Western Hockey League teams play as a kid. The Seattle Thunderbirds are there in Seattle, and loved hockey. Started watching, like I said, young, and then got to see Matt Barzal play from the Islanders when he was in the WHL. But long story long, he eventually started playing hockey and learned how to skate, learned how to play. He's a defenseman now. Basically, wanted to shout him out though for his work with the Seattle Pride Hockey Association, especially with this being Pride Month, and shedding light on inclusion in hockey and working really closely in Seattle and in the Northwest, getting people who might not otherwise feel comfortable playing hockey into the sport, being more inclusive, and just wanted to kind of give him a shout out. There's a nice article on NHL.com, which I know Andrew will put in the notes on our YouTube channel. So you can also check out the Seattle Pride Hockey Association's Facebook page. They've got a link to the article and some other information about them and how to get involved with hockey in the Northwest.
Yeah, that's a great one. Seattle's doing a ton of really cool stuff up there with the Kraken. I think they're going to be a really fun team from the get-go. They're doing a ton of work in the community up there.
They're planning the Seattle Pride Classic, which is a little mini tournament to get teams and players from the LGBTQ plus community in playing hockey and sort of together, sort of to spotlight that whole scene in the Northwest and in Seattle, and hosting as many tournaments as they can.
Awesome. Good stuff, Sean. And Greg, I know yours isn't specifically to the Pride Spotlight, but June isn't just Pride Month. There's some other stuff going on this month, and I think that's kind of where yours is going. So I'm going to switch it over to you now.
Yeah, and that was pretty cool, Sean. That's a really cool thing they're doing up there in Seattle. But just as Pride is all about being an ally to the LGBTQ plus community, the new federal holiday of Juneteenth is all about being an ally to our African American friends and coworkers and family members. So I happened across something I thought was pretty cool and long overdue, and that is that Baseball Reference, the Bible of baseball statistics, has added in stats for the Negro Leagues. I think it was last December. Major League Baseball recognized the Negro Leagues as equivalents of major leagues, and in a long overdue move, Baseball Reference has now added in all the stats from 7 different Negro Leagues, actually. So you can go peruse them and look through, because there's some really incredible players in the Negro Leagues. And in fact, I just thought of this, but if you're ever in our in Kansas City, where we have a location, there's a great museum there about the Negro Leagues. That's a must-do if you're a baseball fan.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think a lot of people, even if you don't know a ton about the Negro Leagues, most people are familiar with Josh Gibson, Satchel Paige, who played most of his career there. But like you said, there's a ton of great athletes that competed in those leagues back in the day, and it's nice to see they're getting their due recognition from Major League Baseball finally. So, yeah, real cool stuff, Greg.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, we are going to now switch over to kind of the main sports headlines out there. First thing, NBA playoffs going right now. Couple of different things we'll talk about. We're going to kick it off, though. Tonight, we've got 2 Game 6s. We've got Jazz and Clippers in L.A., and then we've got the Philadelphia 76ers and the Hawks in Atlanta. My question that I'm going to put out there is, which team trailing 3-2 right now, and those are the Jazz and the Sixers, do you have more confidence in making a comeback? Sean, I know you've been watching a lot of basketball right now. If you had to put your money on either the Jazz or the 76ers to come back in one of those series, do you kind of favor one over the other?
If I had to pick one of those 2 teams, I think I would say the Jazz. It feels like in a lot of these series in the NBA this season, it's coming down to who can avoid all the injuries. Because already in some of these, last remaining series, I've had, I'm pretty certain that this team's going to go ahead and complete this series win, and then there's an injury and it swings back the other way, and then it's 2-2, and then it's 3-2, and like we're sitting here now, and I'm thinking it's all it takes any given night is for like one guy to be out of the lineup and unexpectedly, which seems to have happened quite a bit this year. I think the Jazz have a better chance than the Sixers do in coming back in that. But again, I didn't think the Hawks were going to be able to handle the Sixers at all. So it just kind of depends on who's got the healthy squad.
Yeah, it's he always dominates the conversation even when he's not playing. But LeBron James came out this week and kind of went at the NBA about the whole situation with the short off season and the rest, and saying, like, you guys put this on yourselves. We told you this was going to happen, and now it's coming to fruition. You're seeing all these superstar injuries. That's kind of been the dominant headline in the NBA this postseason, is injuries, whether it's Embiid or Harden or Chris Paul on the protocol list, which we'll get to in a minute. And now you've got Kawhi with this ACL injury. I don't know. I feel like I've flip-flopped on my picks every other day because, like you said, Sean, something different happens every day. If I had to put money on one of these two, I don't know. I guess I'd favor the Sixers just because Embiid's at least playing with that torn meniscus, whereas Kawhi's out. So I think they've got a shot to come back against Atlanta. Philly's going to be pretty raucous tonight. The Clippers still have so much baggage with them being the Clippers that I think the Jazz can come back, but I don't know. I mean, I'm putting more faith in the Clippers because at least they got Paul George, who's playing well. I don't think the Jazz are coming back. I think the Sixers can make a comeback, but ask me tomorrow and I'll probably have a different opinion because
right.
Everything's changing by the minute in the NBA. It's been a whirlwind couple of days. The next story in the NBA is we've got a Game 7 finally. I think a lot of people going into this series with Milwaukee and Brooklyn expected it could be the best series of the playoffs. I think it's living up to that, maybe not to the expectations that we were anticipating because we thought it'd be Kyrie, James Harden, and Kevin Durant all playing. Kyrie's been out. Harden's been in and out of the lineup. Durant's been playing, obviously, through everything. Going into a Game 7 tomorrow in Brooklyn, Sean, if I put you on the spot, who do you think wins that Game 7? Second question to that, who do you think has more pressure to win that game? Do you put more pressure on Giannis, or do you put more pressure on Durant?
I would say the pressure's on Durant because he's at home, because his cohorts are out, and he's kind of on his own essentially. And the Bucks in Game 6 shut him down for all intent and purpose. I mean, it's still Kevin Durant. He's still going to score from the floor, but I saw a stat they flashed up at one point where they had, at any given time, there were 4 different guys defending Durant, and they had really did a number on him. And I think that's why the Bucks are in Game 7. I think it's if I'm picking with my heart here, I feel like this is the time for Giannis to step up on the big stage on the road and close out a series that maybe nobody thought that they would win. So I think the pressure's on Durant, and I think the Bucks are going to win.
Okay. I'm glad we have different opinions on this one because I feel like we've been agreeing quite a bit on basketball. I think all the pressure, like 100% of it, is on Giannis tomorrow night. Reason being is we know who Durant is. He's got 2 championships. He's clearly, I think, with LeBron aging, Durant's the best player in the world right now. He proved that in game 5 when he put up 49 points and basically played every minute of the game. First player to play every minute of a playoff game since 2018 when LeBron did. I think Durant, it's easy if Brooklyn loses, Durant can easily say, oh, well, Kyrie was hurt, Harden's not 100%, so Durant can kind of write it off. Whereas if the Bucks lose tomorrow night, I think they have to blow up that team to a large degree. They're probably going to fire their coach. They've got to change the mix up. Giannis is getting to the point where he's, in his peak years right now. They've wasted 2 MVP seasons the last 2 years. This year, everyone thought, okay, this is their chance to win a championship. So I see all the pressure on Giannis because if he struggles again, then kind of like what happened to LeBron early in his career, it happened to Durant even at a point where people said, can he get it done? Can he win a championship? I think all that pressure starts falling on Giannis's shoulders. So I think that pressure's there. I'm very excited as a basketball fan to see if he can handle it, because if he plays like last night, there's no stopping him. I mean, when he does what he is supposed to do, which is drive into the paint, he's unstoppable. I don't want to see him pulling up at the three-point line. I don't want to see him taking kind of those mid-range jumpers, which really isn't his game. I'd like to see him drive to the basket more. Can he do that in Game 7 with all the pressure? I don't know yet. I want to believe he can. I don't like Brooklyn, so I want to pick the Bucks. But it feels like a coin flip to me.
It feels like we're going to hear, like, in the distance, the Nashville fans chanting at Giannis about how it's all his fault if the Bucks lose.
Yeah.
But I think that he'll pull it out. I think if the Bucks win tomorrow night, does it set them up to be a favorite in the next round at all? Or do we think that it's just going to be so, like, day to day with this as the whole playoffs has been?
I think the winner tomorrow in that Game 7 wins the NBA championship. I feel like it's that important to the winner of that series to get that push of momentum. I think there's a good chance tomorrow night that Harden plays, but he's not 100%. I think Kyrie will at some point come back, you'd assume. So I think if Durant can overcome the odds and win that Game 7 probably on his own effectively, if Brooklyn has some time to get healthy in the next round, maybe they run into Atlanta, who I think they match up really well with Atlanta. They can run through them and make it to the finals. I think Brooklyn just gets stronger as the playoffs go on. Durant gets more confident. He's a 2-time champion. So, but by the same token, I think if Milwaukee gets through this series, Giannis finally has that push of confidence that he needs and says, okay, now it's my title this year. So I really think the winner of the series wins the championship.
I like that, especially in light of our next news bit where I was all over the Phoenix Suns bandwagon. They looked like a juggernaut, and now all of a sudden, CP3 is out.
Yeah.
We don't know for how long. We don't know.
Yeah, so that goes right into our next question, which is that Chris Paul's on the sidelines. He's in the COVID protocol. Not a ton of news out other than we know he was vaccinated. So supposedly that's going to shrink the time that he has to sit on the sidelines. He's going to have to pass so many tests. We still don't know when that series starts because Clippers and Jazz are still going on. So, yeah, that's the Suns sort of felt like favorites in the West, and now all of a sudden that's kind of up in the air at this point. Do you think if Chris Paul misses any game time, the Suns are negatively affected to the point of losing that series? Like how big a significant injury is or loss is this for them?
I think if he's not playing, they'll lose. So if he's able to, maybe because they swept their series, they have a little extra time while the other series finishes up. Because he was vaccinated, maybe his protocol time is shortened. If he can come back before the end of the conference finals, I think it favors Phoenix. But if he's going to be out for 2, 3, 4 games, I think that they're pretty much done.
Yeah.
No offense to the rest of the guys or anybody who's a big Suns fan. I just think that he's so integral to anyone else on the floor scoring, if having him in the game. So
yeah, all you have to do is look at Phoenix last year and the last really 5 or 6 years. Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton are great players individually, but they need that facilitator. They need that leader on the floor. Chris Paul's been around so long that you often hear other coaches say he calls out plays for other teams. He knows every other team's tendencies and calls. So just having a guy with that kind of experience changes so much. I heard he's going to miss a game. I think if he only misses one game, Phoenix still wins the series.
Yeah.
But this feels like Chris Paul's got to be the most unlucky player that I can think of in basketball recently. Several years ago, he should have been traded to the Los Angeles Lakers. The league stepped in and blocked that trade because they said it was unfair. Then he goes to the Houston Rockets, and they are up 3-2 on the Golden State Warriors. It looks like they're going to beat the Warriors, who at the time were the best team in basketball. Chris Paul gets an injury and misses the rest of that series. They lose it. Now he's in this situation where it feels like the Suns are on the verge of being a championship team, and he's going to miss some time most likely. I really feel for Chris Paul because he's been through a lot in his career. He's a Hall of Famer, but it feels like every time he gets close to the summit, things just crumble, and it's not always necessarily his fault. So
yeah.
I'm still wishful that the Suns would make a deep run, but who knows at this point. Not
without CP3.
No, not a chance, I don't think. Okay, switching over to the Stanley Cup playoffs, we've got Vegas Golden Knights and Canadiens. That series is currently tied 1-1 with games going tonight and then over the weekend. Lightning are up 2-1 on the Islanders. Question to you guys, let's talk about Vegas and Montreal first. So they're playing tonight, series 1-1. Dan, if you had to put your money on one of these teams after those first 2 games, who do you think looks better to you and why?
Oh, sorry about that. I truly think that Montreal looks better right now. I just think that they're clicking, and they're clicking at the right time. Although, I mean, it's really, as everybody else has stated out there, it's a coin toss. These teams are both so good. If Vegas could, step up their game, they could take this in, easily. If they're on top of their game, they mesh so much better than any team in the league. So right now I'm still giving it a coin flip. It's got to go 7. To see who really is determined to win this. These two are your top 2 teams that I think that I think the winner of this goes on and wins it. So I think they're going to have tough games coming ahead, and unfortunately, I can't really, I don't know. I can't put a solid definition on which team I like right now. But if I had to go with one of them, I'm going to go with the Habs.
Okay, so Montreal slight edge to Dan. Greg, where do you kind of stand on this series right now, 1-1?
I don't know. It's kind of a coin flip to me. They're both, like Dan said, they're both playing really well right now, and I'm pulling for Montreal though, so I'll give them the edge. And I don't know. Vegas is good. There's no doubt about that. But yeah, it'll go down to the wire, I think, like Dan said, and I hope Montreal wins. They're playing well enough to win. But Vegas is never far away. They can just take it to you before you knew what happened. So I don't know. That's kind of a weak answer. I didn't put a really definitive stamp on it, but hopefully it'll be Montreal.
Okay. And Sean, are you drinking the Habs Kool-Aid like these two guys? Where do you stand?
In a sense, I'm gonna have the same pick, but for slightly different reasons. First, it's possible that I'm just a little jealous that the Vegas Golden Knights are already like a juggernaut. You haven't won a championship yet, but they look like they could pretty much every year. And the other part of that is, like Greg alluded to it, it can kind of turn, a game can kind of turn on a dime, and they'll just steamroll you all of a sudden. And kind of for that reason, for me, the Knights have become the villain, the NHL villain. Like, I don't know if it's the dark uniforms or if it's Mark Stone's stupid face that I see every night when they play. I'm going to root for my boy Ryan Reeves whenever he's out on the ice, but man, I feel like the Knights are just a bunch of bullies. And when teams like Montreal, who have younger, faster guys, not saying they're a faster team, but like Nick Suzuki is eye-popping when he's out there skating at full speed. And I think Vegas gets a little kind of, they get a little testy, like, how dare you come in here and compete with us? And so we're gonna bully you around and push you around. And I'm sure that doesn't play out into like power play percentages or anything like that, who's getting more of the calls. But I think Carey Price is playing well enough that Montreal can win this series. I wouldn't go so far as to say they'll win the cup if they do, but I'm definitely going to pick Montreal in this series, and I think it'll go 7 games.
You guys are out of your mind. I'm just going to say that. What do you got to say, Greg?
I was going to say, part of me just really doesn't want Petro to go win another cup. I'm all right with Jake Allen winning another cup, but not Petro for some reason.
Ooh, sour grapes, man.
Yeah, no kidding.
It is.
I've still got Vegas in 5. People did the same thing in the last series when Colorado won that first game 7-1 or whatever that score was. Vegas is too deep. They're too strong at every single position. They're gonna figure Montreal out. Montreal, if you look at their road here, Toronto was always going to crumble. That's what Toronto does. Winnipeg is not a team with the kind of offensive firepower to eventually get things done. We've all been kind of praising Carey Price, and rightfully so. Marc-Andre Fleury has a better goals against average than him. He's the only goalie in the playoffs with a sub-2 goals against, and his save percentage is effectively the same. So Marc-Andre Fleury, to me, is the Conn Smythe winner if Vegas goes on to win it all. And I picked him, so I'm going to stick with it. The intriguing matchup for me in this series is Montreal has a 92% penalty kill, best in hockey right now. Vegas, shockingly, has the worst power play percentage in the playoffs at 11%. That's not going to continue. At a certain point, they're going to start finding ways to score on the power play. It's just natural that that's going to happen. So I think Vegas can only get better, whereas I think we've seen the best of Montreal. And I'm unlike you, Greg. I want Pietrangelo to win because I want him to shove it in the face of the Blues, who he should still be playing for. And God help us if we get Montreal and the Islanders in the Cup final, because that is the most boring, non-star-filled, least entertaining series I could ever imagine. I get that they're two, popular, historic teams, but I want Lightning. I want Vegas. I want these two exciting franchises. Also, Vegas doesn't get enough credit for the crowd support that they have. I love everything about the Vegas pregame. Every other city could learn from what Vegas does in terms of embracing their identity. They get who they are. They get the city they're playing to, and it's just a party in Vegas. So I love that they kind of embrace what they are, who they are. They have fun with it.
That is true.
I'm becoming a Vegas fan somehow.
Yeah, I'm a fan of Vegas fans to this point. I don't have any reason to feel like, oh, those Vegas fans are like Blackhawks fans. It's not like that.
They're not Predator fans.
They're not Predator fans. But certainly the league managed to do it really right in Vegas. It looks by all appearances that's going to be the same way in Seattle, at least as far as having it been done right. I just don't. I can't get past the Mark Stone thing. That guy just bothers me. And there's other guys on there too, but I'll drink the Kool-Aid until.
There's also a part of me that likes to watch Canadians just continually be tormented year after year when the game that they invented, they can't win it. I kind of love that. So
I do take a little bit of petty joy in that too.
Yeah.
So.
And you guys called me sour grapes.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, like half of the players in the league are Canadian, so I understand that that's the case. But it's fun watching their franchises struggle so mightily.
I gotta admit, Andrew,
Dan always picks them too. The Canadian
He
teams,
does.
Edmonton and Montreal now.
Dan's a romantic at heart.
I like it.
Yeah,
Vegas and the Lightning would be a cool matchup for the Cup, though. I gotta give you that one.
Oh, it'd be great. Two awesome goalies, stout teams, top to bottom, a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But First of all, I don't think any of these series are attracting much viewership. I don't know if you guys have seen the numbers. I also got really mad when I went to turn on the game yesterday and flipped over to NBC and couldn't find it, only to find that it was on USA Network. What the heck is wrong with the NHL? They can't get a game on anything but USA Network. We're in the Stanley Cup playoffs at this point.
That should be fixed going forward.
I hope so. I feel like hockey's losing their grip year by year, but we'll see when they get ESPN's partnership back. Okay, switching over to the other series. Tampa's up 2-1 over the Islanders. They're still in New York for Game 4. Do you think Tampa's got control of this series and will win from this point, or do you think the Islanders can and will make a comeback and still prevail in the series? So, Greg, over to you first. Who are you picking in the series at this point, 2-1 Tampa?
Here we go again, right? So, I don't know.
I already know who Sean's going to pick, so I'll get to him last because he's been on the Islanders bandwagon for years. So,
yeah, I guess I got to go with Tampa. They're so good. They got so many weapons, and the last game seemed like they finally figured out that boring, how to defeat that boring Islanders system. So maybe it's just they blew the doors off the barn, and it's all downhill for the Islanders from here. That's what I'm seeing. We'll see though. The Islanders are good. You don't get this far without being pretty good. So.
And Dan, where do you see this series going at this point?
I think Tampa does have control, but the Islanders could easily sneak up there and take a few more. So I think this also will go 6 or 7, and we'll see a fight to the end. There's something to say about guys you don't hear much about. You're
right. They're not interesting.
They are interesting. They are the key players to a lot of these teams.
Name me 5 Islanders right now, Dan. I dare you.
Oh, I can do that because I have it up right now. So, but that's the thing is that because you can't name some of these guys, you can't talk about how they play. Just because we're not seeing them in the St. Louis's market doesn't mean they're not great players. They've made it to the NHL, which is the best league in the world. So to count anybody out at this time is just is not smart to do, because if there's one thing that I've seen as a hockey player and a hockey coach, is that some of these guys some of these third or fourth line guys can surprise you and be just amazing to see in person and when they finally click. So, I will not, a team of no names versus a team of all superstars. I once again, a miracle can happen, and miracle did happen. So a bunch of no names beat the best team in the world at one point. So it could happen again.
I'm gonna see if Sean wants to attack that one before I jump in. Sean, where do you stand on this series?
I think that the Islanders will win Game 4 at home, and so that's going to push it probably 6 or 7 games. I think the Lightning are a better team, but I like the way the Islanders match up, and I think that if they can do make the kind of adjustments, we'll see who the Islanders are. If they are the Blues, who can only play one way and can't seem to really make adjustments to the way the other team's playing against them, sorry, Blues fans, that's how the year played out. If they can make adjustments, make some tweaks here and there. Montreal did it after Game 1 of their series. The Canadiens in Game 2 were a completely different team. They played a different game than they played. They realized that they can't just go out and play the same game every night. So I think we'll see the Islanders have probably the most stars that people don't know yet, and they need to know. They need to know Barzal and Martin and Adam Pelech is a defenseman who I think doesn't get as much credit as he should for how good he is and his puck moving skills. Their goalie is phenomenal, quietly almost. Is he probably out of his league matching up with Vasilevsky? A little bit. Anybody would be. But like I said, I've always been an Islanders fan, so I'm not going to jump ship yet. And I think that ultimately they'll end up winning the series.
I'm going to stick with Tampa. I haven't seen anything really that leads me to believe that's not going to be the case. I think there's going to be a lot of 2-1 type games. 2 of the 3 games have already been 2-1 score lines. I did notice that 5 of the top 7 point leaders right now in the playoffs are Tampa Bay Lightning. So Tampa has the most amount of top end talent still playing right now of all the 4 teams. They've obviously got the best goalie, in my opinion, today in Vasilevsky. I just don't see them losing 4 times. Dan, you are right that kind of no names can win like the miracle situation. But if you remember, that's kind of knockout style. That stuff happens in those tournaments where you're playing one-off games. That's why the NFL has so much parity. To win 4 times out of 7 games with just the Team USA is not winning 4 out of 7 against Russia in 1980. That's not happening. You can have one good game and catch somebody off guard. To win 4 times is hard. I think Trotz has the acumen to make adjustments, but I think at the end of the day, Cooper's still a better coach. I think Tampa still has a better team. I just don't see any way Kucherov slows down. Barzal's only got 3 points in the series right now. He's got 3 goals. He's got a goal each game. When Barzal's your most talented offensive player and he's only got 3 points in 3 games, you need more from him. I just don't see the Islanders being able to manufacture enough goals in the long run because they're going to want to play those tight, low-scoring games. I think it does go 6, maybe 7, possibly, but I just think Tampa's too deep, and they've got the experience at the end of the day. You have to remember Tampa's the defending champ. They're not going to be caught in the moment in any situation. They're not going to be afraid of the Nassau crowd. Obviously, yesterday they handled it just fine. So I don't think there's any scenario where Tampa looks nervous or uncomfortable, whereas I think the Islanders are still probably a year or 2 away if they can keep Trotz and keep those pieces. Next year, the Islanders could really make a run, in my opinion. I just think they're a little overmatched right now.
No, I'm not going to argue with too much of that. I don't think John Cooper's that much better of a
No.
coach. I think that he's, with the team that he has, you better be good. You better do well, because that's a stacked lineup. But I think that it is going to be an uphill battle for the Islanders, especially against that team, the defending champions, who definitely have something to prove still, that they're not just a one-off kind of team.
Well, I got a rebuttal to that. I think Cooper needs to be recognized for the fact that 2 years ago they won the President's Trophy and they got eliminated by the Blue Jackets in the first round. Everyone was shocked by that. It would have been very easy for Tampa to pull the plug on the Cooper project and say, you're not the guy. For him to take that team and overcome that situation and win a championship and then bring this team back again. Look at Phil Jackson. Just because you got star talent, you have to manage the star talent. I think that's even harder than taking a bunch of guys. Look at Tortorella. Tortorella gets jobs all the time, and he takes these ragtag bunch of guys and manages to kind of whip them up into a frenzy. That's not that hard to get people to buy into a system. I think it's actually harder to manage star power. So I actually think Cooper's doing a better job in a man management position, whereas Trotz can take any team out there and just plug them into his system, but can he adapt to other things? I don't know. Trotz finds the right situations. I still like Cooper. I think they're both great head coaches. I want to defend John Cooper as a guy who I think paid his dues and has shown why he's a championship quality head coach. But I'm not going to trash talk Trotz. He makes me look like an idiot every time in the playoffs because I can't figure his teams out.
I think we'll see a lot about the Islanders in Game 4. We'll see who they can beat.
Dan, any rebuttal on the miracle situation? Do you think Team USA could have won 4 out of 7 against Russia? I'm curious.
Now looking at all the players, yeah, I really do. I mean, they handled that game. If you've gone back and watched that game, they took control of it. So there's no reason to say that they couldn't do it again. It's a tough decision, and it's hard to go back and talk about these players in the past, but there's also something to be said about the Islanders changing up their lines. A right winger on the second line, might be a net pusher, might be a guy in front, but if you push him to the third or the fourth line, he might be the corner digger. He might be the guy that comes out of the scrum to make the plays. So just putting a guy on a different line changes their position, depending on the two guys they're playing with. So you can't just it's not like any other sports where you're taking a guy and just switching same position for same position. You're getting a totally different guy depending on who they're playing with. Everybody knows I play rec league hockey, but I entered a tournament a couple years ago, and for some reason I was put on the first line with these guys because they had no other idea what to do with me, and I ended up leading the tournament in goal. I shouldn't even been on this team, but because they just said, just go to the net, just sit there, and I don't know how many rebound goals I got would just bounce right to me, and I just slid it in the net. So any day, anytime, these guys could be a great player, and I still think giving them giving them 5 or 6 or 7 games gives me hope that they can take it in 6 and 7.
I gotta say, we gotta switch topics, or else I'm gonna fall asleep talking about Islanders hockey. They're the most. I am so bored with the Islanders. They're like the old '90s Devils. They're like anti-hockey. I can't take it. Okay, let's switch over to a news story that actually just broke yesterday. It's specific to a sport, but it's kind of a general topic about sports that I want to get all of your opinions on. So news broke yesterday that Naomi Osaka, number 2 ranked female tennis player in the world, is withdrawing from Wimbledon. This follows her withdrawal from the French Open a couple of weeks ago, citing her mental health. She put out a statement that says she's going to take some personal time with friends and family. She's still planning to be at the Tokyo Olympics in Japan this summer. Dan, I know that you really have a point of view on this, so I want to get your opinion first, and we'll go around the room. What is, A, your thought on Osaka's decision? And then, B, what is just your general stance on the role of media and sports athletes and their obligations to doing interviews?
I think she made a great decision. These tennis is not a team sport, even when you talk about doubles tennis or what so-called team tennis. It's a single person sport. It's you out there, and again, it doubles, it's you and your partner, but it's still you out there. So if she doesn't feel comfortable, if she doesn't feel like the media is gonna be add to her situation at this time, then yeah, withdraw. More power to her. Right now, it's fully in the hands of the tennis association to look at it and say, hey, we're losing a top player right now because we want to ask her questions. It's like, what? What's your point here? So I commend her for going out and taking the time that she needs. And to the second part of your question, without cursing here, it's nobody's business but her own. I don't see a need for all the interviews day after day. It's as a fan, it just upsets me that that somebody has to come off the court and they're like, well, why did you lose your serve in the second set, and how did that make you feel? Well, I lost my serve because the returner was better than me, and it made me feel bad because I lost the game. I mean, well, it's just obvious, and and yeah, they're going to say different things, and it was this or this or this, but it all comes down to, why do we need to know? Why do we as consumers need to know every detail of somebody's life? How they're feeling and what's going on in their head and all this kind of stuff. You give credit to the basketball league because you could circle around LeBron and the rest of his teammates aren't going to get interviewed. You can circle around Pat Maroon and none of the rest of his teammates are going to get interviewed. But you can't hide in tennis. There's nobody. You can't even go, hey, let's talk to my coach. Because nobody wants to hear that either. So more power to her. I think more and more of these tournaments should get to the aspect of, if these players want to speak, they're welcome to speak. But if not, we're not going to make them. They make enough money off of these individuals, off of these talented players, that they don't have to do this media stuff. And once again, it's none of my business, and I'm happy to say that.
Sean, I'll let you weigh in on Osaka specifically if you'd like to, but I also just want to get your opinion on just the general stance of the role of sports media and athlete obligations to speak to it. How do you feel about it?
Well, I think she made the right choice for herself. I'm curious. I wonder if the French Tennis Federation hadn't threatened to expel her from the tournament, if she would have withdrawn. If they had been taking a less aggressive approach in the reprimand. And they can say all they want. There were subtweets from Roland Garros account about other players who understood their obligations, were obviously pointing out that Osaka was shirking her responsibilities and couching it in that light. I think it draws a spotlight on the larger issue of how mental health is approached or thought of, especially in this country, where it's often a second thought for people. That it's not something that's given a high ranking of importance when you're assessing situations or people. And I think in the past I probably would have said, look, these professional athletes get paid millions and millions of dollars. They're going to put themselves out there in the spotlight. Then they should, suck it up and do it and do whatever they have to do to answer the questions or whatever it is. But as I've grown older and grown as a person and understood more about mental health in general, I think that it absolutely the responsibility falls on everyone else around them, the players, to be aware of how they're feeling and what they're saying. You can't read people's minds. But if she's not going to answer questions and she wants to take a break from this because she needs some time to herself, everyone needs to respect that and appreciate the fact that she's maybe having a hard time with all of this. Rafael Nadal is not playing in Wimbledon because he withdrew from the French Open. He said he needs time for healing. I took what he said to be more of a physical type of situation, but really it's the same thing. It's your health, and it should be all one thing, not two separate: mental health, physical health. And I don't think that there's too many people, there's not a lot of outcry about Nadal not playing in those tournaments, as opposed to with Osaka. But I guess the short of it for me is I'm going to side with the players. You don't want to answer the questions, don't answer the questions. Maybe as the governing body of whatever sport it is, in this case the French Tennis Association or Federation, like I said, the aggressiveness was, I think, unnecessary. We didn't like what you did, we're going to kick you out. Maybe the threat, it's a threat, a veiled threat, and I think an empty threat, really. Ultimately, we're upset she's not going to be here. Well, you said you were going to kick her out. You can't have it both ways.
I'm glad you mentioned Nadal, because within an hour of Osaka's news, Nadal pulled out of Wimbledon for physical health, and nobody made a fuss about it. And Federer backed out of the French Open, and nobody made a fuss about it. It's just assumed physical injury, no problem, we accept it. Mental health situation, that's not acceptable yet. It's kind of an interesting thing that's out there still. Greg, just general thoughts on media, athletes' obligations. Osaka, if you want to weigh in on her specifically.
Yeah, I echo a lot of what you guys just said. I mean, it's mental health. What right do any of us have to, criticize her for doing what she needs to do to, take care of herself? It's the same as with the physical injury, really. But I won't dwell on that too much. I think players have a obligation. I think there's a fine line between the media and the players, and they probably need to reimagine that relationship, because I think fans have an appetite for the information, have an interest in the information. But if you ever see some of these press conferences with, hundreds of people crowding around them, I could see where that would be really unsettling, especially for a, introverted type person. So maybe they could do something like they do in politics and have pool reporters, or there's just one representative, or maybe do them over Zoom or something, as we've seen a lot of in the pandemic. I don't know what the answer is exactly, but I think there's got to be a better way to balance the desire for getting information out there and the needs of the player, and maybe use a little more common sense. I mean, if she doesn't do something that's newsworthy, maybe we don't need to hear from her. It's one thing if she wins a match or wins a tournament and does something, or like a baseball player that has an impact on winning the game. But if there's 25 other players on the roster and most of them on any given night didn't have anything to do with winning the game, leave them alone that night. Kind of give everybody their turn in the spotlight. And not. It's harder with tennis because it's an individual sport, but I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but I think there's a better way to balance, like I said, that need for information with the needs of the players.
Yeah, I'm glad you used the word reimagining. That's how Dan and I were talking about this a couple of days ago, just kind of offhand. And especially with the way social media is now, most of these top athletes have social media accounts and are readily available, and you can have dialogues with them as fans. I mean, look at a guy like Kevin Durant. He'll happily engage with a fan if they want to take a shot at him. He's not afraid to go on his Twitter and go after somebody or answer a question directly. Naomi Osaka is a great example. She is very active on social media. She's happy to give her opinions and take social stances and, give commentary on things. She just wants to be more in control of the narrative that she's giving as opposed to somebody throwing a loaded question at her necessarily. And I think that we need to embrace the idea that these athletes have these social media accounts and are happy to represent themselves. And, maybe we rethink the way sports journalism is and the way we need to dissect them, especially right after a match. That's what kind of bothers me too, is we like to kind of get them with these aha moments right after they've just finished these tennis matches. Sometimes, especially on the men's side, that Nadal Djokovic match went like 4.5 hours. After a 4.5 hour marathon match, the last thing I want to do is answer a question about one particular point if I'm Nadal and lost it. Like at what point can we say, all right, enough's enough? Let's give these people some time to kind of, come down from what they've just experienced. Like you guys said, a team sport versus individual, it's harder when you've got somebody like, if you're in a locker room with Charles Barkley, he gets all the attention and every other athlete around him can just kind of happily sit back. Or if you got LeBron, he's obviously the focal point. But not every athlete wants to be. Naomi Osaka didn't get into tennis to also be interviewed every single day. She got into tennis because she loved playing tennis and wanted to be really good at that. And, not every person that's in sports is extroverted and wants to answer all those questions. And so, yeah, I think we need to kind of fundamentally look at it. And I also agree with Sean that if the French had just said, we're just going to let Naomi, not answer questions and we're not going to fine her, I think she would have played the tournament. I think she would have just kept to herself. She probably would have won the tournament, quite honestly. And I feel like that would have sent a better message globally to everyone that, hey, we understand mental health is a serious thing and we want to work with it. That's the other thing is I don't feel like the French really had any communication with Osaka off the court and got her opinion on it. And, I feel like there needs to be a better dialogue between athletes and media and organizations. And I think, Dan, we were talking about this. She had to sign something when she signed up for the French that like media obligations are a part of it. And, should that be built into people's contracts or whatever, that you have to give X amount of time to interviews? Like, is that necessary? I don't know. I don't think so, but that's not just for me to decide.
Yeah, I think it's been touched on here just now. The changes that need to happen are with the leagues and the media coverage of those leagues. And sports in general, how athletes are approached, as people, as participants in a larger whole. And until mental health is given more importance, holds more weight, I think that it's going to continue to be mostly negative because it's just, like I said, you have someone she knew what she signed up for, but that doesn't mean that she's not going to feel the way she feels. And that should be respected more than some contract that says you have to talk to the media. And it's just, it's always the other thing is always put first, and that needs to change.
Yeah, I think we're kind of all in agreement on the stance. Yeah. I'll probably put up a poll online and just see what the general public thinks about this. If you're watching on YouTube, let us know in the comments your thoughts on it. Switching over to another topic, we're going to talk about the Euro 2020 Championship. We're still only a couple of games into the group play, so there's not a ton in terms of breaking down who looks good, who doesn't look good. The main story, obviously, was Christian Eriksen, the Denmark midfielder. I don't know if you guys saw it. You're probably aware of the incident where in their first match on Saturday against Finland, he ended up falling over, non-contact, fell over during the match on the ground, had to be resuscitated, went to the hospital. a really scary moment for anyone watching the match or in the soccer community, in the sports community. I want to get your opinion, Dan. I know you're a soccer fan. Did you see it happen in the moment? Did you catch it later? What were your thoughts on just the whole situation with Christian Eriksen? Because it was a really scary thing for any of us to see as a sports fan.
I caught it later, and it was scary. Anything like that happens, is just a scary thing. It could be a multitude of different things that could have happened. It could have been as easy as just a simple blackout, or who knows? It could be a heart condition or all these kind of things. They all run through your head, and it was on a soccer field. But if this happened on any type of field, you all get this sense of, oh my God, this could happen to me. These are the greatest conditioned athletes in the world, and to see one just fall over like a doll is just scary. I don't I don't think it was right that they had to continue the game later on. Euros. When did you say they started? And there's been a handful of games so far. They could have easily have rescheduled the game. I think both sides would have been fine with that, but for them to push the game on that same night is just a little ridiculous to me. Had this been like a local tournament of 15 or 16-year-old kids, that the whole tournament might have been canceled. It could have been an easy as that, or I hate to say that, you'd hate to see a whole team withdraw from a tournament, but for the sake of a player, it easily could have happened. So I commend those around him that got they got the staff out there as soon as possible, but yeah, it was a scary event, and it's going to continue to be scary until just forever. Once again, a highly tuned athlete.
Yeah, to put a parallel to it, it kind of reminded me initially of Jay Bouwmeester's situation. I don't know if you remember that a couple of years ago with St. Louis, where he went down, and it's so jarring that it's something that's like etched into your brain forever. Kind of seeing an athlete in tip-top shape fall over like that, it's really terrifying. I'm lucky. I was watching the match live on Saturday and happened to have walked away to put the kids down for a nap, so I didn't actually see Eriksen go down, and my phone started blowing up with people asking me what was going on. I'm glad I didn't see it, because there's no need to see that. I want to take a moment and thank several people who acted very quickly. The Denmark captain, Simon Kjær, immediately noticed Eriksen went down. He rushed over to him, turned him on his side, which by all accounts prevented him from swallowing his tongue. He started actually giving him CPR before the medics came over. So for an athlete in the moment to just walk over and do that and have such quick reaction time and thinking on his feet like that showed a lot of leadership from him. I thought the referee, who immediately stopped play and got the medics on the field, did a really good job. Everyone around there, and then the entire Denmark team basically formed a circle around Christian, so reporters couldn't take pictures of him lying on the ground. That's not something we need to see. We don't need to see it published. I know that a lot of papers over in England the next day, BBC and some of those others, got kind of ripped to shreds by fans because they were posting on the front of their newspapers and websites pictures of Eriksen on the ground, and pictures of his wife in the stands crying. She thinks her husband's just died on the pitch. We don't need to see that. This kind of ties back to what we just talked about with sports journalism. Sports journalism as a whole needs to quit focusing on headlines and clicks and attention, and realize these athletes are real people with real problems. And so I think there were a lot of people in the moment when Eriksen went down who were quick to do the right thing. I'm with you, Dan, that it was kind of a gray area in terms of, do you restart the match? Do you not? Supposedly Eriksen video called with the team in the locker room and encouraged them to play. there's some sort of rule in UEFA's book where they had to play the match within 24 hours for whatever reason. So I know it was kind of a hard spot. I don't know if there's a good answer to when you reschedule that match or what you do with it. I think they did the best they could in the moment. They were probably going to get ridiculed no matter what they would have done.
But it highlights, though. I'm sorry to cut you off. It highlights, though, the need for the rules to change.
Right.
It's like Dan said, it seems so kind of almost odd that you would then continue to play. But while at the same time, Eriksen himself told his team he wanted him to continue. The coach had mentioned, and the team, some of the other players had said they felt like they wanted to continue for their teammate. But correct me if I'm wrong, because of the rule that ultimately the choices posed to them were, you can continue playing now, or we can play later today, or whatever it happened to be, or you forfeit.
Correct.
If that's your choice, it's really not much of a choice, especially when your teammate is alert and awake and telling you guys need to play the match. That shouldn't be a rule. You just lost a player, suddenly, unknown reasons. But if you don't play, we just have to forfeit. You forfeit the match. That shouldn't be the way it is. And I think that those kinds of things. Yeah. Again, the focus needs to be more on the players as people, not on the sport and the league and the tournament and that kind of thing. And those are the things that need to change. Those bigger, which is harder to make the bigger changes, but incrementally, hopefully, something. This situation will be looked at. They'll be ridiculed, but then they'll maybe take a look at it and say, okay, in the future, maybe we can make a change to avoid that kind of situation, because you never know when that might happen.
Yeah, and it also makes me, it wouldn't surprise me if we unfortunately run into another issue in the 2022 World Cup in Qatar next year, because it's going to be the hottest World Cup on record. That's why they're playing in December. It's still going to be upwards of 100-degree temperatures every day on the pitch. It's not uncommon in the soccer or football world to have players, hit dehydration or collapse on the pitch. That's unfortunately something that happens far too often. I think that could happen in Qatar next year, unfortunately. I hope that's not the case. I hope they have taken the necessary precautions. But it's always scary to see, especially with athletes like Dan was saying. These soccer players are so built on endurance, and they can run for days. And to see one just fall over, Christian Eriksen's still in the prime of his career. He's an absolute fitness machine. To see that's really terrifying. And at the end of the day, it's just a game we're watching. So by all accounts, they should have probably just canceled the match, figured out a way to work around everything, and addressed it at a different day. Okay, switching over, we got a couple more things before we wrap up. Major League Baseball, big news. I know you guys are probably going to have some opinions. I'm excited for this one. So Major League Baseball is taking a pretty hard stance on pitchers, especially over the last week. So basically the way it is they've identified that there's a lot of foreign substances being used by pitchers to grip the ball. As far as the rules, starting on Monday of next week, they are going to start assessing pitchers every time they step on the mound. If there's a foreign substance found, the pitchers will be ejected. They'll get a 10-game suspension with pay. Supposedly it'll be subsequently increased suspensions if they get caught multiple times. The teams will then be fined for it. I'm curious, do you guys think that A, this is going to work, and B, is this a positive step? Do you think this is necessary? What do you think about the whole Goop on the balls in baseball? Sean, go to you first. Sean, we got you on mute.
Sorry about that. I wish you hadn't gone to me first, not only because I was muted, but no, honestly, I didn't know this was such a big problem in the league. I knew it feels like the kind of thing that has always been an issue. It's always been around. I did not realize that in 2021, substances on a pitched ball were still so prevalent that the league has to come forward and make this big, like, magnanimous, that's not the right word, but this big announcement, this big step that they're taking to fix the game. There's so many other problems with baseball. There's so many other issues that affect players and coaches and teams that this just feels like we got to do something. Okay, let's do this. And frankly, I don't think it's going to really change a lot. I think that if there are guys who are under a lot of scrutiny, maybe we see them not engaging in that kind of behavior as often. But ultimately, I don't think that it really sends the message that like, oh, you better not do this or you're going to be out. It feels too much like just a performative measure by the league than anything that's actually going to affect the games at all.
So you don't see it making a tangible impact starting on Monday or anything like that?
The only thing that you might see is that, you're going to have situations where, just like with banned substances, I didn't know I couldn't have that on my hand while I was pitching, or, something stupid like that. And the first time we see like maybe not the top marquee, but like a second or third marquee down, a marquee name gets suspended, and who's going to miss a start or two in their next. But that's the thing, these guys get suspended for 10 games. Is it 10 games in the schedule? Is it 10 games in their particular rotation? They might miss a start, maybe
right.
two. I don't think that's going to be as impactful as the league office thinks it is.
And Dan, I think Greg and you probably both have the same opinion. I'll be curious because you tend to align with kind of baseball tradition on a usual basis. Greg, where do you stand on the whole baseball goop?
Well, it similar to what Sean said. Prior to this year, I don't think I realized it was such an issue. I know the pitchers complain about the balls being super slick, and they have to do it in order to get a good grip. But at the same token, hit by pitches, hitting the faces, they're all at record levels this year. So I don't know what's going on with that. For Major League Baseball, they seem to get the big things right. Like the All-Star game pulling out of Georgia and the recognizing the Negro leagues. But when it comes to managing the game and the product on the field, they're just kind of ham-fisted with this thing. First of all, it's crazy to change this now. It's reactionary, I think. They should investigate it more fully and do it in the off season. There's already been one pitcher that tore something because he stopped using it. I forget who it was or what he tore, but I don't know. There's gonna be unforeseen consequences, I'm afraid, and I wish they had taken a little more time to see what they were dealing with and think it through and change things up in the off season.
Okay. And Dan, you look like you're ready to jump in on this one. You got a pretty aggressive take, I imagine.
Actually, no. Not very aggressive at all. But
we're letting you down, Andrew.
I know.
I do.
Where's the fire?
Yeah. Well, the fire comes from, Major League Baseball is your 75-year-old uncle. He's over there jabbering a lot, but you don't really care. Nobody cares. Right now, they are so up in the air with rules at Major League that they're a laughing stock. I will definitely say that they are worse than Peros in the NHL. Handing out 10 games for a sticky substance, but the Astros get not even a slap on the wrist. They get a good job for cheating.
I knew we were going to get an Astros comment.
Oh, the cheaters, the big cheaters, and to a little on the other side of things is that if you didn't know that these guys, have juiced the ball for years and years, it's it's what these guys do, and it's as little as just licking their finger and getting that just a little bit, anything to get a better grip on the ball. It helps with everything. So I keep going back to Major League where God, I can't think of his name, but he had Vaseline on his chest, and he had vapor rub, and he had pine tar on his hat, and all this kind of stuff. And I truly believe that more than not, these pitchers have something that they rely on, and that's why you see some of these guys that are just outstanding for so long after they've been mediocre, that they find that they get a better grip with using this substance that is not technically illegal, but but is frowned upon or something, and it goes back to the McCheater and the Barry cheater, with steroids, and they weren't actually banned substances. They weren't actually listed as banned substances. So you can't really call Barry Bonds and Mark McGwire cheaters, but in our eyes, they were cheaters. And so this is what's going on now, and I'd really, you're never going to get a full say out of these players, but I would say that a majority of them use something. So and it's just sad what the MLB does. Handing, like Sean said, if this guy gets suspended for 10 days, for 10 games, and he's a pitcher, he's out too. But if you're suspending this guy for 10 days and they can't have anybody else come up on the roster, I think that would be, I think that would be harmful for the team. So I think if that's the way they're leaning, then that might be better. But if it's just, a guy gets a 10-game suspension, they're just going to go, oh, well, you know what? He also tweaked his elbow 2 weeks ago, or like a week ago. So we're going to put him on the DL and retrofitted for last week, and bring another guy up to fill the spot, and nothing's going to happen other than this guy can't pitch for a week and a half.
Is it going to take the millennial here to give you all a history lesson? I think it's coming. So let me take you back to the great year of 1968, people. That was called the year of the pitcher. If you weren't around like me, I was not around, but I've done my history lesson. So 1968, you had 22 pitchers with a sub 2.00 ERA. Bob Gibson that year posted a 1.12 ERA, still modern day record. The next season, during that offseason, they lowered the mound 5 inches, and they shrunk the strike zone from knee to chest down to more waist to chest. Everyone back in 1969 was flipping out about how dare you do these things. Pete Rose is out there hitting balls. People can do this stuff. People are always going to be mad at change, but that change ultimately fixed baseball in the 60s, because the next year, the average ERA went up about a run per game, and the scoring went up 1.2 runs per game. So it immediately impacted more hits, more walks, more stolen bases, all of those things that baseball fans, we want to see. We want to see action. Right now, the biggest problem with baseball is it's not the length of time of a baseball game. It's the fact that all a baseball game now is the shift, strikeouts, and home runs. That's it. That's baseball right now. Shift, strikeout, home run. The only way to fix that is to fix the balls so the pitchers can't dominate the way they are right now, which is forcing the hitters to just go up there swinging for the fences because they're trying to deal with the shift and all of this stuff. And if you want to increase hits, contact, stolen bases, strategy, if you will, I always hear people complain about strategy in baseball. You have to do something fundamentally with the way the pitchers have the advantage right now, because the pitchers have an advantage right now, unlike anything we've seen since 1968. So baseball has to do something. I'm encouraged by the fact that baseball's throwing things at the wall. Sure, not everything's going to stick, but don't you want them at least coming up with new ideas? The NBA does it all the time. It usually works. They come up with new ideas. They test them out. If things fail, they quickly change it. I think what this is baseball threw this out there. They wanted to see what kind of blowback they get. They're getting a pretty significant amount of blowback. I think what they're probably going to do between now and Monday is kind of like what Greg said. They're going to say, maybe let's just postpone this till the summer. Let's work with the pitchers. Let's work with Rawlings, the people who make the baseballs. Let's figure out a way to make the baseballs still something that the pitchers can throw, but also improve the game to where the pitchers don't need to use a foreign substance. Put it in the rule books, cut out the gray area, put it no foreign substance in the rule books, make it a clear thing, increase the penalty. That could also be why they only have a 10-game penalty right now, is they think there's going to be an adjustment period, so they don't want to throw a pitcher out for a whole season when it's the first time and risk an injury. So they say, okay, well, if you miss a start, we're going to let you kind of get acclimated to the system. That's, just me kind of thinking out loud what they're going to do. I actually think baseball's intentions are good. They want to make the product better for us. However, I will defend the pitchers. Garrett Cole of the New York Yankees came out yesterday or the day before in a press conference and just absolutely pleaded to the league and said, work with us. We hate the balls right now. We have to use some sort of substance or else we're going to start hitting even more people in the head. We can't control the ball. The substance is the only way we can sort of manage it. I think Garrett Cole obviously is a pitcher, so he wants his best interest looked after. But you can't deny the fact that pitchers, Jacob deGrom and all these other guys, are posting these ridiculous strikeout and ERA numbers. It's just the game has deviated so much from what I like about baseball growing up. Dan, I know you're a fan of Whitey Ball. Whitey Ball doesn't exist right now because of the inadequacy of the way pitching and hitting is. If you want Whitey Ball back, you have to change the structure of baseball, and this is the way to do that. Cut the shift out if you want. I'm okay with that. Like figure out ways to make the product more exciting, the action more exciting, balls in play. This is a step in the right direction. So to criticize baseball for this is actually counterintuitive because baseball is trying to make the product better for us, the fans, and then people want to complain about baseball. So quit pissing and moaning about baseball. They're trying to fix the product for us. That's the point of this thing.
How long do you think it will take before we see a positive effect of this?
Next season.
I'm all for changes, but do stuff that makes sense. Putting a runner on second in extra innings is,
has improved baseball. Designated hitter, both leagues improved baseball.
Well, they got rid of it,
headers, improved baseball.
All right. We can.
How dare they try to reach a 20-year-old person who doesn't want to watch a baseball game right now?
The three batter minimum is, it's get rid of. Here's what I would say, Andrew, with the runner on second extra innings. Go to like a hockey thing. Go play 2 or 3 innings. If it's not settled, go to a home run derby.
But that's just
like a
shootout. They don't put the runner on second in the playoffs, so who cares? It's regular season baseball. That's irrelevant. Once the playoffs, every sport has a goofy overtime system in play. Every single one. There's a shootout.
The same thing as the NHL. Their rules change in the playoffs.
That's what I'm saying. So who cares about a runner on second in the playoffs? That doesn't happen.
Well, I'm saying just get rid of that and go to a home run derby, like a shootout.
But wouldn't people complain about that too? Because then you got to stop the game. You have to figure out
who's batting for sure.
Yeah, those guys.
The players don't want to do that.
Exactly. Do you know how much physical energy those players exert in home run derbies in the All-Star game? They hate doing that. That's why most of them opt out of it. Why are we trying to hurt the players? It doesn't have to be
that long. It doesn't, 5 swings or something.
Here's what you do. You reduce the season by about 62 games.
Right. Yes.
And you go with that and see how that works. I'll be interested to see if we notice a difference after this substance issue. If we see a difference in the pitching and the hitting, coming closer together by next year. I think it'll be interesting to watch to see if that happens. It makes me think about guys who, and Dan mentioned Bonds and McGuire. Think about all these guys who've been labeled perhaps as cheaters, who strictly by the numbers should be Hall of Famers relative to the other people that are there. Gaylord Perry, Hall of Fame pitcher, And his numbers, I think, warrant that if you take them at face value. Over 300 wins. He played over 20 years. He won 2 Cy Young Awards. He won 20 games 5 times. But he also admitted that he cheated. He put stuff on the ball. Everybody knew it. He didn't get in for his first 2 years. He didn't get in, and then he got in. And he thinks that's why he didn't get in his first 2 years. But he's in. Would he get in today? If he retired today after doing what he had done, would he still be voted in? I don't think so. Should he be? Should it matter? It's not for me to say. I don't have a vote, but
what's weird to me is that like we're criticizing the commissioner today for problems Bud Selig did 20 years ago. Like we can't hold things against them today for things that have happened in the past. You only have to judge them on what they're doing today. And Greg, let's say they throw 4 things at the wall. If one of them sticks and it's an improvement on the game and they cut the others out, that's the point, is to evolve the system. Like I'll always go back to, people complained about the 3-point line in basketball, and now it's just part of the game. It is the most important part of the game. It's made the game more interesting, exciting. It's improved athleticism. Like you're always going to get pushback in the moment. People hate change. Give it time, okay? Let's not complain about substance on a ball. See how it goes next year.
I'm not complaining about it necessarily. If it improves grip, but it becomes a little wiffle ball like trying to hit those things. And also, what the designated hitter, where'd that go? That was a good idea. Why did that disappear?
Because there's too many Stuart Holtgrens out there that will literally
Stuart.
They'll be picketing and boycotting baseball stadiums. I think Dan might be an anti-DH guy as well.
Yeah, very much.
By the way, a lot of people have examined Jacob deGrom, and he is widely regarded to be in the not cheating camp, which makes his performance this year all the more impressive. Although he is now injured, I believe. So
yeah,
last night or the night before.
I understand, for people who watch Sandy Koufax live, he is the reincarnation of Sandy Koufax. I'll take their word for it. But yeah, deGrom's unreal, what I've seen from him.
Hopefully he's not hurt too bad.
Here's my thing to the DH real quick, Dan. You could put a universal DH and allow pitchers to still hit. All they'd have to do is say, hey, put me on the plate, just like Shohei Ohtani. So I don't get the idea that like a universal DH means pitchers can't hit. It doesn't. They could still go up to the plate and hit if they're good enough to hit. Learn how to hit the ball, pitchers.
Well, if you put the DH back, you could get rid of that stupid 3-batter minimum.
That's not a major league problem, and the DH is not a major league problem. The DH stems from high school ball, college ball, where once these guys get to college, my nephew plays right now and he's a pitcher. They send them nowhere near the plate. So. So I'm not saying that it's a major league problem. I'm saying it's a sport problem. If these kids continue to bat through high school and college, and we're still taking the reps every day. You don't think? You look at Rick and Keel. You got him to where he was hitting the ball every day, and then he was a good hitter. So
define good.
He was better than average.
Relative to
a major league player, a major league starter.
Somebody give me Rick Ankiel's batting average lifetime numbers.
Going to be,
they're going to be under 200, I bet.
I think it begs the question, though, as Dan was saying, this kind of starts at these lower levels. For me, it begs the question: why are the pitchers kept away from hitting? Do they have to, is this a situation where they spend so much time doing this other thing, there's nothing in their schedules that they could cut out to allow for a little bit of batting practice? That's what I wonder. Why do we have to make it so that the pitchers aren't good at hitting? doesn't make any sense to me, really.
I wonder how many pitchers want to hit, though. Like, I mean, in the NFL, we don't complain that a linebacker doesn't play running back. Like, maybe some pitchers like the specialized aspect of it where, hey, I just go to the mound, I pitch. I don't got to worry about batting throughout the week. I can rest my arm, rest my body. We assume all the pitchers want to be Rick Ankiel. Maybe they don't. Maybe some like it.
That's fair. The whole thing leads me to a food for thought that I just came up with that I'll pose when the time is right.
Okay. Dan, give me Rick Ankiel's real quick, and we'll get to the food for thought.
240, baby.
Okay.
240.
Didn't he make a shift from pitcher to outfield or something at some point?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He went to center field and he played. He got almost 2,000 at bats.
So one pitcher out of the last 1,000 pitchers could hit. So good for Rick Ankiel. Happy for him.
He's in the class with Ohtani.
Yeah.
Okay. What is your major league batting average?
Mine is 0.
Exactly.
And I would never.
So a guy who made his ranks up to be a starting pitcher in the league, then dropped out of the league, came all the way back up as a center fielder. Once again, got to give props to that guy.
Yeah, but here's the thing, Dan. If there was a DH, he could still hit. It's not like you're telling a pitcher you can't step to the plate. If there was a DH in St. Louis, Rick Ankiel could have still hit every single day if he wanted to. That's his call. That's why Shohei Ohtani is doing what he's doing, because the Angels embrace letting a DH hit or letting a pitcher hit. We're basically pretending that pitchers will be told you can't hit. Well, no. If you can prove that you're Rick Ankiel or Shohei Ohtani, you can step up to the plate. So people are kind of having this black and white thing when there's more to it. If a pitcher's good enough to hit, he can still hit with a DH. Those aren't mutually exclusive things.
Yeah, but like Dan was saying, the pitchers at a very early age are kept away from that part of the game, so
Exactly.
they don't, as a rule, get the kind of reps to hone their skills or to become good hitters, or if they want to. And that's what I want.
It's really hard to find a batting cage these days to step into.
The only ones that I ever went to are gone, but that was 30 years ago. So
you guys are in love with pitchers at the plate. I'll never understand it. Okay, let's switch over to our final segment of the week. That's our food for thought. Sean, did you say you had a food for thought that you just came up with?
Yeah. How about, instead of worrying about a 3-batter minimum, or instead of worrying about, the shift, or whether or not a guy's swinging for the fences because the pitchers have some sort of an advantage, whether real or perceived. How about every guy that comes up to the plate, you only get 6 pitches. That's it. You get 6 pitches. And whether you have, it would be problematic if you're fouling off all 6 pitches. But yeah. At the end of that, you go sit down.
So if after 6 pitches you aren't on base, you're out?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dan, what do you think of that rule? Greg, what do you think of that rule?
It's trash.
We're going to make change. Let's make some change.
Yeah, once again,
I appreciate the sentiment behind where he's coming from, but take that back to the lab and rework it.
I don't know.
I
kind of like it, Sean. I like it. Maybe you get more young people to want to tune in, knowing there's only so many pitches they have to watch.
I mean, it feels like Little League a little bit, but you got to start somewhere. Go up there and try to get on base. You get 5 swings. You get 6 swings. That's it. I don't make any of those decisions, so thankfully we're all safe from that.
What if they're all out of the strike zone?
Then you walk to first base.
After 6 or 4?
After 6.
Okay. All right.
I think this needs to bake a little longer. This idea. I like the origin of it. Though.
I just came up with it, so I'll work on it.
Okay, Greg. I think you have your hand up. Do you have a food for thought that just cropped up as well?
Yeah, I was gonna plant a seed. I think it's a story we're gonna be totally unrelated to baseball. So it's a story I think we're going to be hearing a lot about in the next couple of weeks. We'll probably even talk about it, I bet. That is the NFL's stance on vaccinated players versus unvaccinated. And they are just came out with it. And basically, vaccinated players have complete freedom. Unvaccinated players do not, and they're even trying to weigh in on their opportunities to get endorsements and use social media and prevent them from doing those things if they're not vaccinated, which is kind of an interesting reach. But I think this is just the beginning of this story. I think it'll be kind of interesting to see how it plays out, and in terms of the larger picture of workplaces and things like that, balancing vaccinated versus unvaccinated workers and whether they can require vaccinations, and who knows. But I think it's going to be a bigger story. That's just getting started.
I think you're right in terms of the NFL being the sport we're talking about, because of all the sports and the different demographics and ages and things it reaches. It kind of branches over more of the sports world than any of them in America. So I think you can get some wildly different opinions based on people's affiliations to political parties and other things of that nature. The NFL covers a lot of ground, so you're going to get some polarizing opinions on that.
For sure. And I just thought the most interesting aspect was them trying to limit endorsement deals and social media postings of unvaccinated players. So
it seems like overreach. It feels like overreach to me.
I don't know that they can do that, but
yeah,
it'll just be curious to see if somebody pushes back on that, or
I think those are the news stories that we'll see are going to come from individuals or even teams that collectively push back.
And not to wade too far into the political spectrum, but the prevalence of the virus as it still exists is mostly in unvaccinated people. They've discovered, and it's a personal choice for everybody. But in some cases, it has to do with access and misunderstandings about paying for it, and people getting time off work and other issues like that. And maybe it'd be nice to see, instead of being punitive about it, maybe the NFL could use their broad reach and become a advocate for those types of issues. I mean, if somebody just is opposed to taking it, there's not much you can do. But if we're going to fight misinformation and access and that kind of thing, I'd like to see them use their reach to do that, because they are uniquely positioned to do something like that.
Yeah, and I've seen some quarterbacks already come out with different stances on things, and some of the comments they've gotten have been kind of all over the place. And the NFL tends to kind of reign with an iron fist, so it is interesting that they're putting the hammer down, so to speak, on vaccinated versus unvaccinated. Definitely a fascinating topic.
And we'll hear more and more about it.
Yep. Okay, well, that's going to do it for the week. We appreciate you spending some time with us. Be sure to subscribe to the channel on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. You can find us at stlbreak.com, and we will be back again next week.
Stay cool, everybody.
All right, good stuff, guys.
We might still be talking about baseball by next week.